Over the last 18 months, this Tone King Gremlin has become my gold standard for clean tones when using single coil guitars. If you've watched any video on this channel in that time span, the odds are really high that that was the amplifier that you would have heard being used in a demonstration. However, recently, I found myself using both my Les Paul and my Fender Super Thin Line Deluxe Telecaster that has a set of Lollertrons in it, a whole lot more, and I've been a little bit underwhelmed with how it responds to that as far as the amount of headroom, and I've tried different tubes and this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day I said, you know what, maybe it's time to look at a different amp, and why not, since I've had such a great experience with the Gremlin, stay with Tone King. And that leads us to today. We're going to be checking out the Falcon Grande. Straight off the bat, I'm going to let you know, this has not been the smoothest road with this amplifier. However, I want to dive right into some playing because I know a lot of people, that's the #1 priority they have when they click on these videos, not some guy just jabbering. I use the Fender JV Telecaster for single coils, and we use the R9 Gibson Les Paul for humbuckers. After we've heard what this thing sounds like, we'll get into some of the issues and some of my overall thoughts that I have on the amp. In my opinion, there's a lot of really cool sounds you can get out of this amplifier. However, it's not exactly what I was expecting. Starting off with a positive though, and this is a major positive that did surprise me a lot, the lead channel on this amp. It's different from the channel that you're going to get on both the Imperial and on the Gremlin. Those both have lead channels. However, those are voiced to be more like a tweed. This is its own thing, and man, it rips. It's got this kind of like lo-fi thing going on. It gets really raw, really gritty with a Les Paul. I was having a hard time not playing more, and it's just one of those things that puts a big smile on my face. Leading me to the next channel, going down in the line here, is the tweed, which is, again, based off of the same kind of thing that's going on with the Gremlin and the Imperial. I think it sounds better in this amp than it does in the Gremlin. Perhaps it's a combination of just more power to this amplifier. This is a 20 watt amp versus a 5 watt amp that the Gremlin has, or maybe it's just a different speaker as well. It sounds great. It sounds a lot bigger, a lot fuller, and you can't just chalk it up to the cabinet because they're not all that different in size. And that leads me to the thing that's kind of honestly disappointing me with this amplifier, and the main reason that I wanted to buy it to begin with, and that's the rhythm channel. To start here, it's really dark. This amp just in general is much darker than the Gremlin. It doesn't have this crispness, this clarity, this bell-like thing that you can get very easily at, in my opinion, moderate settings, being the tone knob at 6, and I'm already getting so much jangle out of the Gremlin. With this amp, I don't have that same experience. I have to really crank the tone on this to kind of compensate and get me into the same ballpark. Finally, that leads me to the spring reverb. One of the reasons I chose this amp over the Imperial was you have a dwell control on this, and on the other one you do not. You just have a level control for how much reverb is available on it. Before I speak more about it, and that's going to lead us into some of the issues that we've had, I did have one other playing clip, and that's with the American Vintage Jazzmaster. We're going to be using the spring reverb on this and checking it out momentarily. The reverb for me sounds pretty good. It's definitely a step up from what you can expect from something like the Vox AC15, where many people consider that to be kind of the Achilles heel of that amp if those effects are really important to you. And I think the addition of the dwell is awesome. You really can hear the difference once you start to crank that up, and it's definitely cool up to that point when you hit 5 on the actual level of the reverb itself. And this is where the problem section of the video is going to begin. This is the third, well, technically the second one, but this one has been repaired, so the third chance that I've given this amplifier. The first one came to me, and this is what it sounded like out of the box. And I thought to myself, no big deal, these kinds of things happen. I got on the phone with Sweetwater and they sent me a second one, and unfortunately, the results weren't all that different. Now at this point, I had been troubleshooting everything I could on my own, and it led me to think perhaps there was an actual issue with the design of the amplifier. And let me tell you one thing that is really important here, and it has to do with customer service on the end of Boutique Amp Distribution, who are the ones that actually make these amplifiers for Tone King. They also make Morgan, Friedman, Soldano, and a bunch of other brands as well. I got in contact with a guy named Josh. I showed him some of the videos and we talked on the phone. I went over some of the things that I thought could be potential problems, such as the location of the reverb tank itself and other kinds of things going on with it that could potentially fix the circuit. We shipped the amp back to them in the first week of April or the last week of March. I forget at this point, and I never heard anything back until about 4 days ago when I got a notification from UPS that I was expecting a package the next day, and it was here. I opened it up, and you can hear the amp works pretty well up until you hit 6 on the reverb. All right, so again, same thing with the hum. I'm at 5 with the reverb, nothing. 6, it's like a switch goes off. Yeah, it sounds like it's going through different frequencies, like through an oscillator. It actually gets the worst in between 7 and 8. But if I go back to 5, nothing. And that's how this amp currently functions. The reverb is fine up until 5. I go past 5 and I start to get this hum. And honestly, I don't set out to make negative videos. I try really hard not to slam companies. I understand people put in a lot of hard work, and after talking to them upon receiving this again with more problems, they said that they could have sworn everything they did. They tested the hell out of this thing before they sent it back out to me. It must have been something got knocked in shipping, which does happen. I'm not denying that that does happen, but the truth of the matter and the fact that remains here is I am disappointed because this is a $2,100 amplifier that I initially ordered in the first week of March, and it sucks because it doesn't work exactly as intended. But all that being said, again, I don't fault the guys that make these amps bad, and I don't fault anybody at Sweetwater. It's just one of those things where things happen, and unfortunately, I'm on the unlucky end of it. Positive news though, going forward, they've told me that they've actually changed how they're going to actually lay out the circuit on this so that future amplifiers will not have the same initial problems that I was having with this amp. So for the long run and for other people who might purchase one of these later on in the future, I consider that to be a positive, and that's definitely a good thing for the company to listen and to make the changes. However, when it comes to me and this amp, I don't think I'm going to keep it. I think it's going to go back, and I don't want it to go in for another repair, and I don't love the clean sounds as much as I thought I was going to, because I was expecting it to just be a kind of beefed up, higher output version of the Gremlin, and in all reality, it's really its own thing. But to each their own, I suppose. Let me know what you thought of today's video. I really wanted to try and be objective, to try to be fair with this and not really complain all that much, and more so just convey my experience with you that I've had both with this amplifier in the parts that do function as well as some of the problems that I do had. Again, I do want to give a thank you to Josh for being really responsive, for answering the phone multiple times, both the first time that I had problems with the amp and then upon receiving it, now this version of it where it still has problems. He's been a really nice guy, and I don't want to slam any one company, and that's not going to change on this channel. And yeah, it is what it is. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, useful, and or entertaining, let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section down below and how you would have handled the situation had it happened to you. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and take it easy, everybody.